All right.
All right. Christopher, Mr. Salem, welcome to the podcast. Um, just to begin, just tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do, what you've been doing lately, and more specifically, what season are you in your life?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me on the show. Well, for first most, I always like to say that I'm a happily married man to my wife Maria now for 10 years. It is my second marriage.
Yeah.
Uh, I got this one right for sure, and been a dedicated father to my son CJ, who's now in his first year of college at Coastal Carolina. Matter of fact, I just got back a few
Nice.
days ago, moving him into his dorm. So, uh,
Nice. School
yeah,
starting.
I love it. So I'm a dedicated family man. I'm committed to people. And as a profession, I'm a business acceleration strategist. I work with
Okay.
business owners and businesses and helping them to turn challenges into results
Mhm.
uh, that I can identify where the bottlenecks are and loopholes and help
Okay.
them with their blind spots to help, turn those challenges, obstacles, and setbacks into actual opportunities. I've been doing that now for, oh God, 20 plus years now. And I'm also a professional speaker. I speak on a wide variety of different business topics. And
Okay.
often many of my clients hire me after seeing me speak at an industry B2B, B2C conference, entrepreneurial event, you name it.
Okay. Nice. Um, it's you mentioned a little bit about your background as far as being a happily married man and devoted father. You know, life has like a couple of seasons, right? Let's say about 4 or 5 seasons we have. We have the beginning part all the way up to high school, and then all the way up to from high school you go into college and you have your college career, and then for a lot of people you have your post high school career, um, and then it goes into adulthood. It's like about 4 or 5 stages. What season do you feel like you're at? Can you describe the season that you're at in your life?
Well, God, I would just say that right now it might be it might be a myriad of all of them. At some point, I guess. Yes, I've been through. I'm 58 years old, so I've been through a majority of those that you just said. But I would say that right now I'm in a reflection state, meaning that I'm looking back at all the mistakes and obstacles that I went through and what has become in a positive way as a result of it. So how I used, how I look at it in a different light now that it was a blessing those things happened in
Mhm.
order to be where I'm at today. I look back at, what could I have done better and what did I learn being a husband, a father, a member in my community, a leader in my business and industries that I serve. So I'm in a reflection stage right now. And from that reflection stage, what can I be doing now to give back in the latter part of my life? So even though I'm going to, carve time for myself and my wife and my family to do the things that, we will all love to do and enjoy in life, also want to be able to give back to the business world, the things that I've learned. And now I will continue to be doing that through this reflection stage, through my speaking at various industry conferences that I speak at and companies direct.
Nice. Life does have twists and turns. Can you share a memorable life experience that challenged or shaped who you are today?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's been several of them, but there was one in particular that was life. It was profound. It changed my life. It was back when I was 31 years old. At the time, I had been struggling with almost 13 years of addiction up to that point. I,
Wow.
I was an angry young man dealing with, a lot of anger, just
Mhm.
a lot of uncertainty, reacting to life, reacting to just about everything. And I didn't know what to do. The only thing I knew how to do was to escape and medicate to
Mhm.
deal with the anger. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, I had a life changing moment when my father he was 56. He had been diagnosed with lung cancer. He hadn't smoked in years,
Mhm.
and he was given a year and a half to live, but he only lived about 4 months into the diagnosis.
Mm,
Just to give a little context to this story, my dad was the root cause to a lot of my anger. Meaning that
mm,
when growing up, my dad was never usually around, and when he was emotionally checked out. I didn't realize it at the time, but in hindsight, I've been able to look back and say that as I became a man, I was looking for his validation. Because I didn't get the validation, I would
mm,
always seek it out in other people. So if I went out of my way to please and enable other people, they would give me that validation. But we all know people, you never live up to their expectations. They always want more. And so thus it would make me angry that when I put my agenda to the side to do for you and it wasn't good enough,
mm,
brought me a lot of anger and frustration. So when my father made, in the last year or two before he died, he had made an attempt to kind of make up for that lost time. When I was a young boy growing up and a teenager, where he wasn't very active in my life at that point. And when he was diagnosed with cancer, I remember I was in the room with him. He was on morphine. They were kind of winding his body down to, so he could die peacefully. And I remember him
mm,
looking over at me. He couldn't. His eyes were half open, half shut. He couldn't speak, but he was speaking to me. So I guess you're probably saying, well, wait a minute, Chris. He was speaking to you, but he wasn't actually word. You weren't hearing actual words come out of his mouth. What does that mean? Well, to this day, I still can't figure it out, but he was speaking to me, and I could hear every word he said, except they weren't actual words coming from his mouth. Strange, but it is the truth. And I can remember him looking over at me, saying, I know I wasn't always there, but I want to let you know that I always loved you, your brother, and my brother got the brunt of a lot of the emotional, you know, baggage from this and became a drug addict, a heroin addict, to be precise.
mm,
And he said, I loved you, your brother, even your mother, my parents had been divorced now, up to that point for about 8 years.
mm,
And with that being said, he said, I did the best I could with what I knew.
mm,
And
mm,
and all of a sudden I started to think about that in that split second, that moment, that my dad was never looked highly upon by his father. Like he was always,
mm,
my grandfather wasn't a go-getter like my father, and my father resented that in my father. And I guess my grandfather resented that in him. So
mm,
as a so he was kind of like, the same thing happened to him that he did to me and my brother, did not
mm,
realizing that. So I realized
mm.
he can only be the father he knew how to be. He didn't know any better. It wasn't an
Yeah,
excuse, but at the same token, we're all dealt a deck of cards, and sometimes it's not always favorable, and we have to be able, as adults, to now make do with it and do what we have to do to make our lives better, to learn from it. And that was like for the first time in my life that I had felt like, that life wasn't happening to me, like a victim, or using excuses and deflecting how I felt onto the people, because that's what I was doing, or blaming
mm,
my father. It was like it was happening for me. That I could use these trials and tribulations and this very difficult life that I've had up to this point, and use it for the good, to turn my life around and do something more profound than just work hard and make lots of money. And then, and end up spending my free time doing, drinking and doing drugs and things that I was doing to escape the pain. And that's when I turned my life around. I joined a 12-step program. I embraced Eastern philosophy and immersed in a process that helped me to heal from the inside out. I adopted emotional intelligence, and now emotional intelligence has become a way of life for me, mindfulness. And it's
mm,
something that I've practiced now for 26 years. And I use the concept, or the foundation of EQ, in everything I do, not only for myself, but as a husband, as a father, and even in my business, doing executive one-on-one coaching and working with teams for high performance. I use emotional intelligence to enhance communication strategy and delivery, leadership development, production, valuing time to manage it more effectively, and getting things done. So that experience changed the whole course of my life 360 degrees to what I am today. And I'm so grateful for that moment I had with my father when he was speaking to me just in a different way. Can't still to this day figure out how I heard what he was saying, but I did. And I covered that in my book that I put out 9 years ago called Master Your Inner Critic, Resolve the Root Cause, Create Prosperity.
There, people, one of the things that I'm quite interested in is the passing down of generational legacy and knowledge in positive and negative ways. I know I'm a therapist by trade, and so one of the things that we do with our clients is do what we call a genealogy exam. I'm not a genealogy, but what is called a genogram, not a genealogy. Let me really double back there and clarify that. We do. It looks like there's a little bit of feedback on this on my end. Who knows? But we do a genogram.
Yeah.
It's called the genogram, and it tracks the pattern of behavior to see whether there's a passing down of behavior from one person to the next, from the previous generation. Like, for instance, you identified that your parents were divorced, and and you end up carrying on that trait. Do you feel like your circumstance was unique from your father's? Is there that, you get what I'm saying? Is there a connection between the two types of relationships?
I would say that I ended up being, I early on in my life, I tried to emulate my father because I was looking for his validation, but that wasn't who I was.
Okay.
This is why I was so miserable, because I was trying to be somebody who I wasn't.
Okay.
I tried to pretend that I didn't care. I tried to pretend that I tried to stuff my emotions. And even though that wasn't me, I didn't stuff my emotions. I always let them out. And so I was the direct opposite of my father. So I learned to embrace that I didn't have to be like my father to get that validation. I could be who I am. So in my case, it was the almost the direct opposite of what my father was. Except that I had the drive to succeed, which my father did. It's just that he didn't know how to find harmony in his life, and he didn't know how to express himself. So he stuffed a lot of that, the negative emotions and baggage from his own childhood that I believe to this day manifested itself into cancer and took his life.
My bigger question, as it relates to probably my curiosity, is what are the things that you feel like your father passed down to you, good and bad?
I would say for me, for what was good, it was that a strong work ethic. How to manage money effectively. That I live below my means. I don't spend on just anything. I spend on the things that I actually require. So, I've been able to be financially stable very well since even from a young age because of those things I learned from my father in those cases. The things that were opposite were the ability not to stuff my emotions, but to share it in healthier ways. Prior to at the time was through unhealthy ways. So those are the things that I would say that I really, in one way, related very well and aligned with my father, and another way that was completely the opposite.
I'm gonna pivot the questions a little bit. Can you share a moment in your life where love or kindness deeply impacted you?
Yeah, well, there's so many of those particular stories. I would say that, love and kindness, I've had, my mother has always been, kind of like my rock in a way. And with my mother, what I liked about my mother was that she was always there to listen.
Mm.
And when she listened, she would, provide advice, share something, and then allow me to kind of do something. Like what am I deciding to do with it? And see, love and kindness is not there to tell people how, when, or why to do it. I mean, there might be some cases where that's necessary, but it's just to listen, to relate and understand, to share, to ask questions and point and allow you to decide what is best for you from that, to make changes that are going to improve your situation, whatever that may be. So loving kindness is where I like to call empathy and kindness isn't about just doing for people or pleasing and enabling others. That's not loving or kindness. That's kind of like codependency. That it keeps people stuck and stagnant and dependent on each other. That doesn't work. But when you can lead from empathy, you can empower and encourage people to do for themselves, to be the example, to be the resource. And that's what my mother was for me and other mentors I've had that inspired me, encouraged me to do for myself when I felt like I couldn't. And those are the things that really, molded me to the man I am today. That I'm able to lead by example, to be it, and to be kind and and resourceful and in sharing with others to do for themselves.
Describe love.
Love is unconditional. Love is the ability to be patient, to be understanding of people, of who they are, that we're not here to change other people, or to conform them to something that we like them to be. Love is allowing someone to be who they are and to be who you are and to express yourself in ways that complement one another, not depend on each other. So a lot of times there are a lot of relationships that people think are love where they're codependent, and that's not real love. Real
Mhm.
love is the ability to love yourself first, fill up your cup, put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on your child. I use that analogy,
Mhm.
and it's consistently being the example and being the resource for others to do for themselves. And when we can come together and complement one another, it's just the icing on the cake that just elevates that love to a whole new level.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's pretty solid. That's a very solid explanation. When I talk to clients, I sometimes talk about you know, make sure you love yourself first, take care of yourself first, take care of your relationship second, and then take care of the kids third, and then everybody
Exactly.
else gets the overflow. But if
Yeah,
you but if you're drought in those first three areas there, it's very hard to give outside of that space
yeah, you
there.
can't give from an empty cup, and many people do, unfortunately. And this is where codependency just wreaks havoc in families,
Mhm.
communities, churches, businesses, and it doesn't do anything good.
Yeah, codependency is a very strong word, very, 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 very well used word in the addiction world.
Yes.
Um, give me give me a little bit of your commentary on the dangers of codependency a little bit, aside from what you've already spoke about.
Well, with codependency, people become dependent. People feel entitled. They feel enabled, and as a result, they don't rise up to do their part. They just expect other people to fill their cup and to pick up the pieces or to do for them. And these are the things that don't build winning teams. They don't build winning families,
Mhm.
winning communities. You look at the Amish, right? The Amish really understand what interdependency is, because they've
Mhm.
demonstrated for so many years. And a lot of times people will laugh at them and how they live their lives, yet they complement one another. They help each other,
Mhm.
but it's they're a complement. They're not dependent on each other, and
Mhm.
and they're very happy people, and they get things done. Things are made with the finest quality. You look at their furniture, you look at the food that they make, and just in general, how they live. They live simple lives, and yet, we live such complex lives, most everybody else, and we live in a world of dependency. We're dependent upon our communities, our governments, other people, and when things don't go your way, you point the finger, you cause conflict, and this is what our society is made up of, unfortunately. And when we can build more interdependency, starting in the family first, then outward to the communities and to businesses, well, that could change everything if we're able
Um,
to have a ripple effect.
using it, yeah, we're the goal is interdependency in life. Elaborate on what interdependency actually is, because it can look like a lot of things to different people.
Interdependency is the ability, again, to fill your cup first, to do the things that are going to improve your life. So you could be the example and be a resource for others to do in their role and duties, whether that as a spouse, a parent, your profession, what you do in your profession as part of your team that you work at your organization, as a member in your community, whatever that may be. And it's the ability, it doesn't mean you don't do for other people, but it's in ways that you do your part that's going to help them to do their part. And then as we're doing it together to complement one another, we raise the bar on what we're doing together as a team. It means the ability to communicate at a very high level, to be assertive rather than passive aggressive. Most people communicate in a passive and or aggressive or both way. And these are the very things that are keeping us stuck and stagnant and dependent on each other. But when we can be assertive, where we can be specific, clear, and concise with ourselves first, then to other people, chunking our statements so people can truly understand what was said, asking more questions, not telling people how, when, or why to do it, but sharing and encouraging people now to answer what that means to them. It's at that point when we can now really relate and understand each other, be able to adapt to what is, not always what we think it should be. That's when things start to change in our communities, in our families, in our businesses, our industries, whatever that is. It's easy when it sounds easy. In reality, it really shouldn't be hard, but we make it hard. And unfortunately, it's not something that will get easy quick, but it can happen if we can be aware of it and be able to apply it each and every day. And over time, hopefully through that ripple effect, that it catches on and people start to do it.
You mentioned earlier, as you were, post recovery, that in post development, personal development, that you learned how to develop your emotional intelligence, citing mindfulness. Do you believe in mental health? Is mental health important to you?
Oh, mental health is very important to me. And I mean, I was born with ADHD, so I didn't mention that before. So that tacked that on to my emotional instability that I had growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Yet I have a daily routine. I do,
Mm-hmm.
as I work out my physical body, I work out my physical or my mental well-being through
Mm-hmm.
intelligence. I meditate, I journal, I do Tai Chi, I walk every day. I do certain things that are mentally preparing me to be in the present moment, to lead by intentions
Mm-hmm.
in the moment where fear is reduced, not operate in the past and the future where fear thrives, tied to outcomes and expectations. So I think completely different compared to most people. I don't think in the past and the future from fear tied to expectations to outcomes. I have no expectation. I lead from intentions in the moment. And through that, I'm able to reduce my stress, my anxiety, keep my ADHD in check because I'm doing these things every day through a daily routine to maintain that level of mental well being each and every day.
Yeah. Um, everybody's got a different type of viewpoint on mental health, which is okay. I'm a mental health counselor. I've heard just about everything so far. Um, is is mental health codependency? Is if I seek out a mental health counselor, is that a form of codependency?
No, I think that again, no. I think if that person depends completely on that counselor for everything they're doing, yes. But the counselor or the therapist is the guide, the resource that helps that person to do for themselves. Now, granted, some people have different levels of mental health, right? There's different spectrums of autism and Asperger's and ADHD and ADD and obsessive compulsive disorder. It could be, so many other things. And some things we will impact in how we look at life and do things. So you got to take that also into consideration, but always doing the best you can to position people to do for themselves within their capability at that point. Working with them, slowly based upon their capabilities of what they can do. That's what I'm a firm believer in.
Okay. Religion versus spirituality.
Spirituality all the way. I mean, I don't like to talk about politics and religion, but everybody, if they have a religion, so be it. And I'm happy, and I hope it works for everyone. For me, anything where man is involved to control, and there's no better way to do it through religion and politics. And for me, that has been the downfall of society from the day man walked the earth. It's spirituality. It doesn't matter where you are. You can have a connection with your higher power wherever you are.
Okay. You say you don't like to talk about it too much, so I don't want to put you too far down the deep end here. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. I'm very much self-proclaimed Christian.
Jesus too.
Okay, all right.
I don't want to let that know. I'm a believer in Jesus. I just don't believe Jesus is projected.
Okay.
Based upon what we've been told.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Yeah, it gets complex, especially when you talk about the tenets of the Bible and how do we talk about God or Jesus Christ in a healthy way that does not condemn people or does not, is always, anytime we talk about anything, it's always through a corrupted flesh, right? It's like, there's an inspection of it.
I'm a firm believer that Jesus walked the earth. Jesus was a visionary, saw things that most people couldn't. It scared people. But I think it was the Romans that used it in a way to now manipulate people and to control them. And that's what we all know from religion, to this day. And that what we went through. And I think a lot of things were taken out of context, in my opinion, with what Jesus actually taught.
Yeah, I think as technology is improving and we're learning things about the Ethiopian Bible, having a broader knowledge and understanding about the interpretation and language and the proper translations of the original text. I think that a lot of the manipulative aspects of things like the Bible or scriptures will probably come into and I know we're shorting on time here, even as we speak. We're right up to the button here.
I'm going to elaborate further on another show because I love this topic. And I'm not against. I mean, if people are religious, I have nothing against that at all. I'm all for it. It's just that when people use it to, enforce their beliefs onto other people, that
I agree.
I don't agree with. If you're Muslim, if you're Jewish, if you're Christian, if you're Buddhist, it doesn't matter. For me, it's just about your relationship with the source, and that's what it's about. And doing the right thing, just and owning your role and duties. And most religions teach that you have to put all of your faith into your higher source, and you don't have to do anything. I don't believe in that. I believe that it's yin yang. You have to have faith in yourself to do your part for your faith to do its part for you to move forward. It's not like your faith is going to move mountains for you, and you're just going to sit and wait for it to happen.
The Bible speaks to that pretty eloquently. It says faith without works is dead. Well, I know we're shooting on time here. We cut for time here. One last question, and you can be short with this. Somebody's damaged by the church. What advice do you give them?
What advice I would say is just, hey, it is what it is. I know it's easy. You don't want to hear that right now, but that you can now pick up the pieces and find what works for you. Don't allow that to ruin the rest of your life. Find out what what didn't work, what you can do better, In some cases, you can look back and this could be a blessing in disguise. Find what works for you, and it doesn't matter what other people think. Do what's going to make you happy moving forward, as long as it serves you and it doesn't hurt others and serves others as well.
Yes. Mr. Salem, I know you're short for time. Thank you so much for doing the interview. Maybe we'll do a part two. You seem like a pretty solid guy.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for having me on.
No problem, my brother. Talk to you. Bye now.
Good. Bye.